So, as we were broadcasting yesterday around 7:20 p.m., the first round World Championship snooker match at the Crucible Theatre in Sheffield, crucial match between Joe Perry and Robert Milkins, two people no one cares about.
I have been known to be a fan of snooker before in my time, and I do not know either of these people.
Well, there you go. Again, not exactly the most thrilling of matches, but either way, it just kicked off. They don't kick off. They don't use their feet at all. This happened.
TQ'd
Know
on?
what that was for.
Did you see? I want to just start the thing from the start again. Listen out for the guy who instantly shouts, "You prick," is my particular highlight.
I don't quite know what that was for.
Someone said there's a joke we made about this on Twitter, which was, when you're pregnant and find out that it's Protestant.
Quite know what that was for.
I think that was the joke.
Yeah. So that's what happened there. And on the other table, a woman tried to attach herself to the table. It didn't. I'm not entirely sure how that went on. Like, I'm not sure how she tried to do that exactly. Because it didn't really make a lot of sense, her approach to it. But whatever, she was arrested. Nothing changed. Those guys went out and completed their match later on in the evening, after about half an hour, and subsequently that table has been fixed and it's all fine. So it wasn't really that much disruption at all.
Yeah.
And there was Just Stop Oil, who are the same people who have glued themselves to things and threw their tin of soup over not over the painting, over the glass protection around the Van Gogh painting. So
they previously disrupted sports events, like they would tie themselves to goalposts at football matches, right? But even less disruptive than this, because there's no only to fix the goal, having removed the person who's tied to it. Unlike with this, we actually have to rebase the table after this gets done.
Indeed, they did. They have to completely essentially reconstruct the table, as it were. Yes, indeed. Although I am reminded when people bring up these silly things that the suffragettes literally planned to bomb the Crystal Palace Stadium the day before the FA Cup final. That back in the day, like 110 years ago or whatever. So this is not exactly a new thing that people are doing, and it's far less disruptive than much of what the suffragettes did.
It is incredible how many liberal types will cry foul over the woke lefty mob radicals protesting in the way that they do, when the whole basis of liberalism was based on top of protest, right? I mean, the reason why we have liberalism in Europe is because there was a whole fucking revolution about this shit in France. Like that was a lot of liberalism spread from there within Europe, and things like, as you say, the suffragettes with their right to vote, they engaged in protest. But equal rights in America, there were protests. This is not a new thing, and this is a foundation of liberal society. The idea that protests are this new thing that only woke progressives are doing because they've been indoctrinated by cultural Marxists in the schools, or the woke schooling, or whatever it might be. This is just a complete fabrication from a bunch of people who haven't got any clue how history works.
Indeed. So, this is Ash Sarkar versus Piers Morgan.
I think this is the end of the thread, actually. I think you have to go through all of the different quote tweets to get to the original one.
Oh, okay. No problem. I will happily do that, because of course it was. Hang on. Oop, there we go. So that's the first one. Yeah. So this is the old battle, isn't it? Where he accused her of being a Hillary Clinton supporter, and she said, "I'm literally a communist."
Yeah, it was Obama. Because it was in response to the Trump.
Obama. Sorry, yes.
It was in response to the Trump protests. He literally said to her, "You were always very anti-Trump, but relentlessly pro someone like Obama, who also engaged in the same kind of draconian stuff at the border." And she goes, "Well, I'm a critic of Obama. I'm a critic of the Democratic Party because I'm literally a communist," which is my follow alert on Twitch.
Which is a noise you should make happen by going and following immediately.
It's true. You can do that. You can do that and make the noise happen.
You can also make other noises happen with money for either or both of us.
True, indeed. The stream my stream will say fucking neoliberalism. Although I guess yours might be another Frege Stalin ghost moment.
No, I've got Michael Jordan from the 1980s when he was a young man who was doing an anti-drugs campaign thing, and he just goes, "Stop it, get some help."
Oh yes.
So if you give me money, I give you advice to not do that.
Yeah, quite
because
so.
I think
Quite
you are
so.
wasting your money. But I appreciate your waste of money nonetheless.
True.
Yes. So Ash Sarkar puts out the video of the thing. Well, as let's stick with the gender binary. As you're a lady person, I'm a man person. You can read the Ash Sarkar, and I will
can
read the
indeed.
Piers Morgan.
So, I mean, as also her first point is very relevant to what we were just discussing about the history of protest. It takes real guts to do something like this, surrounded by people screaming "You prick" at you, and the suffragettes were hated in their time too. I think she made a point later on to say, there are two kinds of protests that happen in this country: ones that nobody noticed, and ones that people hate.
Yeah. So brave. Yet oddly, your courageous heroes never pull these pathetic stunts in countries actually causing most of the world's pollution, like China and Russia.
Which is the sole kind of resolve of these anti-climate, or these people who admit that climate change is happening but don't want to do anything to stop it, or want
Yes.
to, because they say it's the discussion about climate change existing is kind of over in this country, and
Yeah.
also the discussion about the need to do something about it is also kind of over as well. And these are the last dregs of the opposition to that, where we shouldn't do anything about climate change is their response is, well, Russia and China and India aren't doing anything about this, when they actually are doing some things, not enough, but they are doing some things, which means we shouldn't have to bother. Which is the
Yeah.
same kind of logic that they have with the refugee thing as well. Well, hang on a minute, why should we be the ones who take the refugees? Someone else can fucking do it, right?
Yeah.
Not my problem. When actually,
Also,
if this breaks down, because if everyone takes this maxim, the whole thing breaks down, because no one will do it because they always expect somebody else to do it.
exactly, yes. Also, I do want to raise a slightly wider point, but I think it underlines the ridiculousness of Piers Morgan's point. Actually, there are lots of very, very brave people who are standing up to the governments of Russia and China in Russia and China, and
Yeah,
they're
literally.
arrested, imprisoned, killed, exiled, and all the rest of it, really, really horrifically. And you shitting on them by saying, well, people aren't even doing anything in these countries. People from those countries are doing those things. And the fact that you never report on it, Piers, shows that you don't give a fuck about what's going on in those countries. You just want to go, China, Russia, vuvuzela. There, got him, bitch.
Literally,
Like, that's it.
literally. It's just a convenient excuse to not have to do anything about climate change. And also,
Yeah.
amusingly, if we were to really talk about a real country that causes most of the world's pollution, well, you should look at the USA. Sure, they have less
Yes.
overall carbon being deposited by the USA. But first of all, if you do it per capita, China is much lower. The only reason why they're the biggest is because they have the most fucking people, because they're a gigantic country. And second of all, the other reason why loads and loads of pollution is being caused by China is because the entirety of the fucking West has outsourced their manufacturing to China. If that
Yeah.
hadn't happened, I'm sure things would be a little bit more equal.
Yeah, absolutely. And places like Indonesia, which take just unbelievable tons and tons and tons of literal garbage. We just ship it there and they have to deal with it. And they don't tend to deal with it very well. They just dump it in poor areas. It's a thing that happens that the West is completely oblivious to because it's convenient. Anyway, what's also convenient is Lexi Bat raiding. Thank you, Lexi. Everyone go and follow Lexi. I can't
there
help
you
but
go.
feel this was because I had a go at them yesterday for raiding it to you instead.
Yeah.
So I feel slightly
he was
bad.
raiding to me.
Yeah. But anyway, thank you, Lexi. Everyone go and follow Lexi. Hello, Raiders. You can hit the follow button and give me money if you want to.
You can indeed do both of those things.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's that's the first of those, and then Ash claps back with,
They're calling on our government not to issue any new oil or gas licenses. That's their demand because they're citizens of this country. I'm sure you'll be lending vocal support for the environmental defenders in Brazil, India, and Indonesia. Talking about them on your show, perhaps?
yeah, I'm sure he's done a lot about the devastation of parts of the rainforest, the Amazon rainforest under Bolsonaro. Did he
Exactly.
mention that at all over the last 5 years? No, I don't think he's literally
Not at
ever
all,
mentioned it.
I mean, he was literally in America. We shipped him off to America for a bunch of for however many years. Did he ever at one point mention at all about the gigantic carbon footprint of the United States at all in his talk show in America? Did he?
No, but he did platform Alex Jones.
That was very funny.
So thanks for that.
And he argued poorly about gun control with
He
Ben
did.
Shapiro.
He made Ben Shapiro sound vaguely intelligent. Again, he was the Fisher Price rim that Ben Shapiro was donking on for all those years, along with the stupid students and stuff.
Exactly.
Piers claps back with impeccable logic. They're attention-seeking, deluded morons who whose dumb, puerile antics won't persuade a single person to support their cause.
True, how dare a protester try and seek attention?
Yeah.
I can't believe a
Also,
protester would want some kind of attention for their like, crazy. I know. It's like saying it's like getting angry at streamers for wanting clout.
yeah. What's that? You want people to watch the thing you're doing?
Mm.
No.
It's
Also,
like it's identical, literally what we were talking about yesterday. Identical to the people who get angry at corporations for wanting to make money, as if
Yeah.
that's not literally the entire point of being a corporation, right?
yeah. Also, I think it's very, very, very funny that Piers Morgan calls other people attention-seeking,
Or puerile, or
or
dumb.
or deluded, or morons. Yeah,
Yeah,
basically
exactly.
any of the words in there, including single. Lol. Also, I just noticed it's not necessarily relevant to the thing we're talking about, but our old friend Kelly J. Keane piped up. Hello. She says, Ash or the activists, both. What?
Displaying her usual verbosity here.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point, Kelly, whatever it was. And Ash says, attracting supporters can be a double-edged sword. I'd rather be universally hated than popular amongst neo-Nazis, for instance.
Heyo.
Fair play. Fair play. Good point, well made.
Always good to know that Piers Morgan is happy to be surrounding himself with the friends of the neo-Nazis.
Just the
As he
best
is
of
wont
people.
to do.
The best of people, yes.
A bit
Ash
of goalpost
respond.
moving there. Yeah, a bit of goalpost moving there. The civil rights protesters of the 1960s polled horribly. 61% of Americans disapproved of the Freedom Riders in 1961. 57% thought lunch counter sit-ins hurt the cause, but they persevered and eventually they won. I mean, it's identical to the kind of discussion we were having with around Keir Starmer, saying the gender reform bill shouldn't have gone through because it doesn't have overall popular support. In which case, if we all went down this road, we would never have abolished Section 28 for those same reasons. It's amusing that Keir Starmer can be beaten from the left by Tony fucking Blair.
Yeah, and indeed the legalization of homosexuality was very unpopular.
Exactly. Or
But I think we all
Equal
accept
Rights
now
Amendment?
that was
like,
yeah, that was
Equal Rights Amendment have not had popular support?
yeah, exactly. There were loads of it. Basically, any good thing you've ever heard of was fought for by people who were hated and didn't have public support for it.
Exactly, 100%.
But they persevered and they did stuff that disrupted the flow of things, and were told to be quiet by idiots.
Well, that's the thing, right? Is that liberals and like conservative-leaning liberals always have this opinion. They always basically sit in this position where every single piece of activism before now was good and justified, but the
Yes.
activism now, no
Well, you can
justification for any of this.
Well, you can support Martin Luther King now because he's dead. He's no threat to
Literally.
anything now because
Exactly, and
they literally killed him.
And they continue ironically misusing what they stood for as well. They'll always say that Martin Luther King was anti-woke and anti-identity politics when that was literally all that he stood for. He was a socialist, for example.
Exactly, yeah. Well, I've heard
was in support of violent resistance. They keep talking about the suffragettes as you said, they didn't bomb shit, for example. And or like they always kind of all venerate. What's the anti-slavery advocate that they always they always bring up, the one that was like the most milquetoast of all of them, and yet they forget, the Haitian Revolution, for example, or even forgetting, as I said earlier, Maximilian Robespierre, who is one of the founders of the current new liberal consensus that we have.
Yes,
and he literally got there by executing monarchs.
And executing lots of other people as well.
True. There's a whole revolution about this stuff.
My friend Gil, literally, he's tearing up over it. He was an old friend. He knew him well back in the day. Anyway, yes. So that's Ash said the thing. Oh, that has gone. Oh, hang on. Oh. Right. That was the end of it. Okay, right, cool.
But that's the point. The point she's made is made quite well there, and I think that demonstrates how ridiculous the rightoid response to this has been. And there's no justification for this shit that they keep parroting about this, because fundamentally, I think that they do know that they're wrong. They fundamentally know that the case for climate change is completely insurmountable, but they have to find basically any justification as to why people who correctly protest against the fact that the government is not doing enough and hasn't been doing enough for 4 fucking decades, and the fact that it would mildly inconvenienced the incredibly privileged bubble that they live in, where they might have to suddenly cut down on car usage or not go on as many foreign holidays or recycle more often, right? The little things that they've been told they have to do
Yeah.
are apparently, and things, the stuff that Just Stop Oil are protesting about doesn't even affect these people on a base kind of level. For example, it's on a macro level about new oil gas licenses in the North Sea that are being given out. That's what they're actually protesting. They're not protesting for regular members of the public to do more recycling. They're not protesting any of this stuff. It has actual no effect on the rank and file members of the population. And they still get angry about it because the protests mildly disrupt a snooker match. Come on, it's pathetic.
Yeah. Anyway, talking about incredibly privileged, Tom Harwood. Let's go.
Person, Laura Johnson. And Laura, thank you for speaking with us. I just wonder, first of all, it's very confusing to me. Why snooker?
Hi, well, thank you for having me on again, Tom. Yeah, just to introduce myself, I'm Laura. I'm a 38-year-old single mother from Essex, and I am a supporter of Just Stop Oil because they are demanding
Sorry
that...
to pause Andy already. How she literally has to preface all of this by trying to say, look at my situation. I know you're going to try and frame this as me being some kind of middle-class person with no real problems who wants to become an activist because I'm a student type, whatever it might be. 'Cause that's always the framing, right? The framing is always, this is activist student politics, rather than someone with the real problems would want to look into. So much so that she literally has to start the segment by saying, actually, people watching, I'm a single mother from Essex who's a working class person, because these people cannot imagine for 1 second that maybe working class young people are all actually genuinely care about the climate. It's a fundamentally uniting issue amongst young people in this country.
Yeah.
The UK government say no to new oil licensing.
And I'm just trying to understand why your group would have been attacking a snooker event.
They're not attacking the event. What the fuck is wrong with you? They're not protesting snooker. They're fine with snooker happening. It's because it's a very high profile thing. It's on BBC 1 and 2. It's like a big fucking event that millions of people will see and will get people talking about the issue. They're not against snooker.
And also probably because it's low security. It's the biggest event with the lowest security.
Well, if you see, the wide shot of the actual thing, there's no security really there. If there's nothing to stop someone stepping over the little barrier, right? There's nothing to stop him. So, it's easily accessed. And maybe that'll have to change now. Maybe because thankfully it was Just Stop Oil rather than ISIS that decided to do some shit there, right?
Yeah.
Why is that in any way relevant to oil licenses?
Well, I mean,
It's
time to pick a side. Snooker is a spectator sport, and it's time to get off the sofa and get on the streets and join us from the 24th of April in London. We're going to be marching to demand a future for the people we love. You mentioned that Eddie had said that he's not having children on moral grounds. Well, I am a mother. I have an amazing 7-year-old son, Alexander. And how can I look him in the eyes when he's talking about his future? What he wants to be when he grows up, when I've looked at the science and I know how terrifying his future is. And if we do not stop this genocidal government, then there is no future for my son, and there's no future for your listeners, children, their grandchildren, the people they care about.
Fucking based. Love it.
And a great answer as well. A ridiculously stupid question from Tom Harwood, who literally basically have to taught from base principles how protesting works.
Yeah.
And then she's gone you stupid question. But anyway, I'm going to actually move to the thing that I really do want to talk about, which is the fact that I need to have a future for my son. And again, I think that's it's also really good optically as well. If you're trying to, put this in the realm of, I have a son who was talking about what he wants to grow up. This is really kind of, it's very an emotionally gripping kind of way of putting it down. And obviously, people don't work on logic; they work on emotions. That's a good argumental tactic.
Yeah, exactly. And as Navigator points out, does the GB host want them to attack oil depots instead? Would he prefer that?
They do. I think they already do that as well.
Yeah, but I mean, disrupting the operations of an oil depot would be, I think, significantly more serious. Because snooker, I like, but is ultimately pointless. It doesn't matter.
And also, it's more serious. Plus, would get less coverage.
Yeah, because no one's
Because-
watching fucking Oil Depot World Championship 2023. It's not happening.
Literally, 100%. One of it is activism to do with actual disruption of the thing that you're trying to protest, and the other is activism to try and gain some kind of to gain notoriety. It's exactly the difference between product advertising and brand advertising I was talking about yesterday.
Yeah.
Between the difference between wanting to promote your specific product to try and sell its people, and promoting the brand itself, trying to change perception of the brand, for example.
This
So
is serious.
I'm going to
Now-
take from what you're saying that there isn't anything specifically about snooker that warrants this sort of action. What it is just about trying to gain attention. And so
Yes.
to that end, can we expect that any sporting event, any event that goes on in the country, really, no matter
So this is protesting 101, isn't it? It's literally just like, well, they might do this at other times. Yes. Yeah, they're going to do it at other
Literally.
things.
Literally, I mean, this guy got his big break on Turning Point UK. And Turning Point UK,
And it shows,
true. Have recently got huge amounts of notoriety because they went to protest a drag event that wasn't happening.
Oh, brilliant. Great journalists.
Literally, and so
Yeah.
this it's ironic that this guy is trying to essentially intuit in real time how protesting works from base principles. When the organisation that he got his break from literally do this thing, but instead of protesting about the future apocalypse, they're protesting about fictional drag events.
True. But look, it's the fictional ones you've got to be worried about. Huh?
True, very
Because
true.
they wouldn't expect you to do grooming at a fictional event that no one attends. Huh?
Mm.
Huh? 60 chess people.
what it is could be interrupted by this group.
Yes,
Well,
Tom.
the fact remains
Yeah.
that everything is going to be interrupted. There will be no snooker championship when the climate crisis hits us. And I mean,
Not true. They'll just have to wear scuba gear because we'll be underwater. Checkmate, libs.
it's already here. Your listeners, they know something's wrong. Look at the winter. We had food shortages. We didn't have salad and tomatoes. We're only a few natural disasters away from not having bread, not having pasta, not having rice. And then how will your listeners feel? Will they feel like they did their moral duty as a parent to protect the people they loved?
Laura, you're speaking as if the government isn't acknowledging the existence of climate change. You're speaking as if the United Kingdom...
Well, no, you can acknowledge anything. I mean, they also acknowledge that rape is a bad thing, and yeah, it's de facto legal.
Exactly.
They're not doing anything to stop the bad things happening, Tom. So the people that want the bad things to stop are doing things to try and make the bad things stop.
Literally, and that's the things what they actually are trying to do here. Because I've watched so much GB News output at this point, it's unreal how much of their stuff.
Honestly, you are going to get brain cancer. It's going to happen.
It's going to leave me like irreparably damaged.
Yeah.
But one of the lines they specifically want to go with is they've got this big anti-net zero thing going on, right? Nigel Farage pushes it on his Talking Pints program that they've got. They're all really in on this idea that
Can we
conservative...
just? I just have to for anyone watching, it's Talking Pints.
Yeah.
Talking pints because they drink beer on the show.
Yeah, literally. But they've got this big thing going on where they're trying to market it, though the silent majority that their audience they're trying to pander to are people who hate net zero, who don't believe in climate change, who don't want to do anything about climate change, for example.
Yep.
And so they're trying to essentially manufacture consent for support for the fringe politics of Reform UK, who are anti-climate action, who do want to see the net zero target scrapped. And so their editorial line on this one is that the Conservatives are not listening to us because they're too woke. They've gone woke by believing in climate change. When we all know, as leftists, that they outwardly support climate change because they know they can't win elections without it, because it actually is not. The silent majority are the ones who do support climate action. That's always been the case. It's the case across Europe right now. You cannot win an election in Europe without being pro-climate. Even Marine Le Pen was being pro-climate. That's how ridiculous. That's how overwhelmingly supported this is.
Second shout out for the Le Pen clan today. I was told by my French correspondent Marcel that her crusty old father is at death's door. So fingers crossed,
You love to see it. We love to see it.
Yeah.
But what we know is that Liz Truss used to be on the fucking one of the advisors to Shell, of all places, for example, Nadeem Zahawi came out of the petrochemical industry. This government has vested interests in not properly addressing structurally issues of climate change, hence why they were
Yeah.
gifting new licenses out to North Sea oil and gas drillers, which is what specifically Just Stop Oil are trying to stop, which shows that they have diametrically opposed interests. But we're leftists, so we understand that the government will lie, and Tom is a delusional idiot, or at least he thinks his audience are delusional idiots who think that the government are entirely sincere with their desire to reach net zero.
Yes.
Hasn't halved its CO2 emissions in the last 30 years, more than any G7 or G20 country. You're speaking as if this wasn't the first country in the developed world to commit to net zero by 2050. Is it not the case that the government is really singing?
This government also, well, should I say the Tories, committed to ending rough sleeping by 2025. They've literally more than doubled the homeless population since then.
Yeah. Well, my favorite stat about this: there are more homeless people in London than there are people in Norwich.
Oh, for fuck's sake!
It's a crazy stat, absolutely crazy stat. And do you know what? They weren't homeless for a very long time during the pandemic. We decided it was correct to house homeless people during the pandemic. Then the pandemic stopped, and we're like, yeah, you've had your fun, back onto the streets, off you fuck.
Yeah. Like, if we can do it when why does the temperature have to go low or there to be a pandemic? If we can house people, I say we should fucking house people.
Quite.
It's, call me a crazy woke commie boy if you want to, but I think people shouldn't be homeless. Although I do have to wonder, who has the worst standard of living, the homeless of London or the people of Norwich? I don't know. I don't know. I feel sorry for both, to be honest.
I would like to point out for you, Kevin, though, what you've done there is anti-Semitic. I'd like you to retract that comment.
True, I did suggest that the government can do things to help people, and thus I'm anti-Semitic. Yes. Yes.
From your hymn sheet.
Well, it's very good words, very good greenwashing that you've just given us now. That's how
she's good. She's good at it. Yeah. You juxtapose that to the fucking Animal Rising guy who might have well been in a coma, frankly.
Government describes themselves that we're world leaders. We're not. We're world leaders in lying. When we give you the figures, when they give their figures out...
Sorry to interrupt you, Laura. I really don't want to, but we are a little pressed for time. Are you saying it's untrue that the United Kingdom has halved its CO2 emissions in the last 30 years?
Absolutely. We're about to open a coal mine. So we're going to open a coal mine. And look,
you can't respond to data with an anecdote. Are you trying to dispute the established fact, that CO2 emissions have halved in the last 30 years in the United Kingdom?
The problem is as well, there can be some amount of reduction that's happened. That's fine, whatever. Like, I'm glad that that's happened, but that's not good enough. That's not good enough. That's not the reversal. That is merely arresting the momentum of the onset of the climate crisis. If we reduce it a bit, but then don't reduce all of it, when we could literally have done more than this. Like, we didn't build any nuclear power plants because Nick Clegg said, computer says no, back in 2011, for example, right? We could have not had entirely of our energy system dependent on gas power because of the ridiculous policies of privatization that meant that the only startups that could compete with British Gas when it stopped being the de facto monopoly were the gas power plants, because they were the cheapest to be able to build and the cheapest to be able to run on at the time, because global gas wholesale prices were pretty low at the time, right? Yeah. This is all a result of the privatization, and that won't happen until the government and the state completely grapples control over the energy market, which they won't do.
Yeah. Also, to address the point, even if we say it's halved, which I have my doubts about, but let's say it has. Her point about them opening a new coal mine is actually a data point. It's not an anecdote. That will massively increase the amount of CO2 the country is producing, and thus mean it's virtually impossible, even if we assume the government wanted to achieve net zero by 2050.
Yeah, 100% correct. And also all the new oil and gas licenses, which literally is the whole point. That's why they're called Just Stop Oil.
Yes. Yeah.
include, if you let me finish, I'll explain. They may have halved from the figures they're giving out, but the figures they give out do not include aviation, transportation, all of our imported goods, and our military. When
She's so good. She's so good.
So ultimately, the numbers they're giving out are fucking pointless. If it doesn't involve aviation, then it's nothing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What's interesting as well is that one of the main things that causes lots of pollution is actually private jets. Actually,
Yes.
the percentage of like aviation that's done, if you do it like per passenger, for example, and you compare like private jets to commercial air travel, private jets are ridiculous, for example, in the amount of pollution that they give out. But I tweet this out on Twitter that I don't really care about the climate impact of private jets, but I want to get rid of them because I like making rich people upset.
That is, again, you make a strong point. So no to jets and golf. Basically, posh people don't get shit.
Yeah.
If you're rich, you're not going to be very rich anymore. Just saying, because we're going to reappropriate and redistribute. And secondly, you can't have nice things because you fucked everything.
Literally 100%. And also, I'd like to make another point out is that we can reduce our carbon emissions, for example, a lot. But unless we stop the amount of consumption that's being done that we outsourced to China, which is, again, as we pointed out before, this big bugbear for the anti-climate action people. China's the real issue because they do they're the biggest polluter in the world. Well, yeah, maybe we should stop buying their stuff.
Yeah. If you just outsource your carbon footprint, the carbon footprint doesn't disappear. It just goes to a different place. But ultimately, the planet's still fucked. Because whether that carbon footprint is produced in China or Britain or America or anywhere else, we all have to live on the same fucking planet. Could we not boil it?
Yep, right.
When you add those things in, which are very important contributors to CO2, our emissions are rising.
I think that, Laura, I'm afraid I'm going to have to refute you there. If you look to the Our World in Data site from Oxford University, including exported emissions in this country have been falling. Emissions in many countries have been falling. It would be legitimate for you to claim, for example, they're not falling fast enough. But I think it's simply untrue to say that they haven't been falling.
Tom, our government is planning to open a coal mine. That's just madness, okay? Renewables are 9 times cheaper. Your listeners are dealing with an energy crisis where bills are rising. Renewables are 9 times cheaper. We know that we have to move away from new oil and gas lines. This is not what Just Stop Oil is saying. This is what 99% of the world's scientists are saying. I want to say one thing very quickly to your listeners. If you can imagine someone you love has turned suddenly ill, you take them to hospital, and instead of one doctor, there are 99 doctors there, and all of the doctors say, this procedure has to happen right now to save the life of your loved one. Are you going to listen to those 99 doctors? Are we going to listen to 99% of the world's scientists? Or are we going to listen to the genocidal government? And I urge your listeners.
I don't know. Is the other doctor, is that one doctor calling the other doctors sheeple?
True, but does that doctor have lots and lots of potential shares in the death, in a company that will benefit from the death of the child?
Exactly. I wonder.
She makes a good point there, but I think it's, and again, it's worth. I mean, even so, I think she'd move off the opening the coal mine stuff. I think but focusing on the point at which, say, you know, he's right. Tom Harwood is correct in saying if they are falling, she should be making the point that they're not falling fast enough, because that is literally true. Again, as I said before, you're arresting the momentum. You're not reversing course. And what we need to do is reverse course, which we're not doing at this point in time.
Yeah.
After the people they love and to join us on the streets on the 24th of April. It's time to pick a side, and it's time to be on the right side of history.
Laura, I gently suggest to you that the government is on your side, that the government has actually reduced the amount of coal in energy generation almost exponentially. It's only about 1 or 2.
Almost exponentially. What? Oh. It's just bullshit. I'm sorry.
Now, when it used to be over 30% of our energy coming from those dirtier fuels. I'm just slightly confused as to why you seem so against a government that has signed up to just about every single one of your aims and values. I'm really...
Well, it's just not true that they have. And the ones that they have signed up to, they have no intention of delivering upon.
Exactly. 100. As you said, it's greenwashing. It's literally just greenwashing.
Yeah.
Really sorry, we do have to get to a break, Laura. I'd love to talk to you again at some point. I really do appreciate you coming on and having this debate with us here, but thank you so much for your time this afternoon.
I think debate is a little bit over the top there.
A grandiose term for what happened there.
Yeah, that was painful, but I thought she did really well.
I agree.
Yeah.
I do think she did pretty well there, which is
Mhm.
good. I mean, we need more people like her who are erudite communicators to come and do this stuff. Otherwise, you'll end up with all the other situations where we've had people go on. Because if you're an activist, you're probably not someone who's had loads of public speaking training like Tom has. The example would be every time you see Ben Shapiro debate some college student because they've not had loads of extensive and expensive media training that they have both had. Given that Tom Harwood's career has basically been financed by Lance Foreman's salmon money.
Yes, indeed. But